Good morning, everyone. My name is Insomnia, and me and my friend Larry are going to be singing some tunes for you this morning. I'm a singer, songwriter, educator. Right after this, I'm going to go to school with my second grade kiddos. And I'm very honored to be here today. Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. Tell me what's going on. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. Mother, mother, everybody thinks we're wrong, but who are they to judge us just because our hair is long? You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. Tell me what's going on. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. We're going to do one more song, and it's one of my originals, and this song is called Bear. And it's just a song that's about like loving yourself and self-love. And like how through like self-love you can accomplish so many things. and self-love. You can do it all. Yes, you can. 'Cause with self-love, you can put the world in your hands. Love yourself now, you're worth it all, even if you fall. Love yourself now, you're worth it all, even if you fall. Talking self-love, you can do it all. Yes, you can. 'Cause with self-love, you can put the world in your hands. Love yourself now, you're worth it all, even if you fall. Love yourself now, you're worth it all, even if you fall. Even if you fall. Thank you, everybody. Remember to love yourself.
My mic on? Yes. Are we ready for the last day? Now, how many people, in fact, hello virtual audience, we welcome you as well. How many people felt like we got transported in the future when we went to the Macon building? Yes, between the music and the commerce and the love and the community. When I was walking through those halls, I was thinking, this is what the vision looks like. And if we could see that today, imagine what we can build as we do all of these works together. Also, how about Pharmacy, everyone? Can we just, wherever that queen is, can we bow? Can we kneel? Can we raise our hands? Oh my goodness, just so much truth, so much love, so much power and joy. And so I remember I told you I was going to be your tour guide. I got to give you your little tour guide information in the beginning of the morning. So, first and foremost, if you think there's late checkout, there's not. I tried. So it's at 11. So if anyone has to rush up, pack, do any luggage, please make sure you do that. Also, we always want to thank our sponsors, particularly Beneficial State Bank, Gerdau, Shift Capital, who hosted last night. Yes. And Guayaquil. So we want to say that. Also, has everyone done the Costa Rica challenge? Remember the Costa Rica challenge yesterday? So the Costa Rica challenge, you go to the B Community Hub, and you do 5 things, I think. You have to take pictures, you do have to post on Beehive, there's all sorts of things, and then you can win a trip to Costa Rica. So don't forget that one. Then the other piece I'd like to mention is the marketplace. Have y'all gone and visited the marketplace and seen all the wonderful stuff? Woo! And for the virtual audience, even though you're not here, there's a marketplace, list of the marketplace vendors online and Hopin, so you should be able to see that. Now, for those of you in the marketplace, how many people grabbed a copy of my book, The Social Impact Advantage? Yay! So, quick note, we were supposed to be selling those, but I have a favor to ask of you. If you just go ahead and buy a copy for someone you know or you love, we're all square. All right? Well, I know yesterday we talked a lot about building a power and building a movement, and one of the things that's challenging is movements take time, and they're little ripples that happen over time. And one of the things that's really important to do is to celebrate when some of those ripples happen. So I have a quick video to let you know that ripples are happening and people are noticing.
Hi everyone, this is Labor Secretary Marty Walsh. A special thank you to Jorge Fontanez of B Lab for inviting me to share a few words. And thank you to everyone in the B Corp movement for your efforts to create a community around the goal of a better economy. Your theme this year, Humanity at Work, celebrates the human value that fuels your business values. These are values that support high quality jobs. These are values that will help win our clean energy future and protect our environment. These are values that bring an end to historic injustice and move everyone forward together. Your work helps show what a model employer should look like, and your work aligns with the goals of the Biden-Harris administration has for our economy. President Biden says it all the time, a job is about dignity, respect, and your place in the community. I've seen it in my own life throughout my career. Good jobs change lives and lift up whole families and communities. And we have the opportunity right now to lift up more people than ever before. Through the President's blueprint, good jobs are being created right now in infrastructure, manufacturing, clean energy, healthcare, and much more. In the Department of Labor, we launched the Good Jobs Initiative to make sure all of these opportunities come with good wages, strong benefits, equity, and access for all communities. And we're partnering with employers to ensure good jobs are being created throughout our economy. So I invite you to reach out and learn more about the opportunities for partnerships. My goal as Labor Secretary is to empower all workers morning, noon, and night. And we can't do that without employers who are at the table. So I want to thank you once again for the leadership that you are demonstrating in our economy. And I hope we will have a chance to continue the conversation soon.
So we talked about good jobs, we talked about closing out inequity. And so today's session, this morning's session, is going to be about racial equity. And I want to pause for a second and just honor B Lab. B Lab has been on a journey, and this panel is a reflection of that journey. And one of the things that's been so amazing to be part of the B Lab movement for a really long time is the change you want to see in the world, you make it every day. And one of the things that people have been wrestling with is, if you pull back the layers of what's the root cause of so many of the challenges we have, it often boils down to inequity. And we have to really interrogate not just ourselves, not just our systems, but our relationships with each other if we're going to dismantle that. And so taking the time to really dig into the root causes of those issues with the people you're going to hear from today is a step in that direction. I also want to honor the people who spoke yesterday from Level, Aurora and Annie. Yes! Because it's easy for us, like I said, to stay in the cerebral and the intellectual and talk about we need to support the leaders of people of color, but they are the leaders. That's what that leadership looks like. That's what that culture feels like. And it might be uncomfortable, but that's the change we want to see. And I want to bring up another one of those leaders to speak to you now. Her name is Abna Wama Achimpong.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Abna Wama Achimpong. I am the founder and CEO of Hana Hana Beauty. And I'm so excited this morning to share with you guys more about our brand and our process around how we bring different pathways to levels of sustainability, access, and transparency, from the producers that we source from all the way to our community and our customers. Now, Hana Hana Beauty, we are a consciously clean skincare, beauty, and wellness brand. And our mission is to bring a level of humanity into the beauty space that has never been seen before. Now, with many beauty companies, we have our origin story. And our origin story does start with a level of problems and issues. However, my problem and issue was being ashy. And I don't know if some of you guys here know what it means to be ashy, but it's dry. And in 2014, I was a teacher in Chicago, in the west side of Chicago, thinking about what I could do with my students, also fighting admin, and at the same time, really thinking about self-care. And I was talking to one of my students, Brianna, at the time, and telling her, Brianna, do you even know what's in hot Cheetos? Do you understand what yellow 5 is? And she was like, Ms. Guama, do you know what you put on your skin? Do you know every single thing that you do? And being Ghanaian, I went back to my closet and I had some nkuto, which you guys know as shea butter. Now, I grew up using shea butter. My mom used to rub it all over my body, making sure I would not leave the house being very presentable. So in 2014, I decided to start making my own products, making body bars, making whipped shea butter, and just sharing it with friends and family. And for many years, that was my self-care. That was the way that I started to just take care of myself. And I was really encouraged at that time with my friends and my family to start my own business. So in 2017, when I decided to launch Hana Hana Beauty, I wanted to be really intentional about how I would launch the brand. And also, I was very curious about the process of how shea butter was made. And I don't know here if I can get a raise of hands, who has ever seen the process of shea butter being made? Well, if you haven't, it is it's a labor of love, and it's really hard on your physical body. So when I decided to start Hana Hana, I decided to go back to Ghana and start working with the women and learn from them. And when I got there, they took their time to teach me how shea butter was made. And after, I was like, well, all I have is a little money. Can I buy some of this shea? And when they told me the price, it did not sit right with me. So from then on, we decided to start paying 2 times the asking price for raw materials. And from 2017 till now, we have really created the Hana Hana Circle of Care, which looks at how we can be intentional about bringing economic sustainability, access to healthcare, as well as optimizing production for the producers that we work with today. And with that, we have the Hana Hana Circle of Care, which became an initiative at first, but now we are fiscally sponsored and becoming a nonprofit. And today, I'm excited to share with you a video called The Process, Episode 2. We do have Episode 1, which you should definitely check out on our website, which is around healthcare. And I would be remiss to say that we are fundraising today, not only for our Hana Hana Circle of Care, but as well as a elevating and scaling brand. So I'll allow you guys to watch the video. Thank you so much for having me.
16 million women across West Africa work to pick shea nuts, produce, and distribute shea butter. None of these women have structured healthcare benefits, despite the physically strenuous process of producing shea butter and healthcare in Ghana being universal.
Initially, Abuna wanted somebody that could translate and then help transport shea from Tamale to Accra and then from Accra to the States. I was fortunate to be that person, and me being a nurse helped me or Abuna to bring the idea of why don't we try to attend to the healthcare needs of these women.
The Hana Hana Circle of Care is the social impact arm of Hana Hana Beauty. We work in partnership with the cooperatives that we source our raw ingredients from.
Isa yulim bona abiwata ada kan torpa minute sirgale nzo yum pishi ntorpam ka kwahara anto tokpam ma to kwai ntanna ka nan gbana ne biara abin biya lo shelen biara abu arma zayen biara to katra yelka na wunce ka na alala kwamma na ka tigir la arma zan chang taba ma demi bida akto taba ma yel mangale bombele ma ni yela na tan yasi do meten nan la ma ay mele tra duwa to ko sura kana chaka undal ma yina ta tetlema da zuta paaya ne dan kala shama do ti le ni wa hal ma da balagam ma to le ni la ka ko fa bariya
Since 2018, the Hana Hana Circle of Care has served over 1,500 shea producers, their children, and members of the Katarga community. We've also brought technology like a kneading machine to the cooperative.
I think at the service, at the end of it, is like, how can we be self-sustained? When there's problems, it's, making sure that Hana Hana isn't exactly a charity, but it's like, when we have access to something, what can we give that access to? Like, without the women, we wouldn't be able to make our shea. Without the women, we wouldn't be sustained. So for us, it's like, how can we continue to pour into the communities that are pouring into us?
The Hana Hana Circle of Care is now a fiscally sponsored nonprofit organization. We are working to increase access to healthcare for the cooperatives that we source our ingredients from by mobilizing our biannual healthcare day so that we can serve more people and communities on the go. The ability to sustain oneself economically is a crucial piece of overall wellness. We are committed to using clean and ethically sourced ingredients and working to leave the planet better than we found it. We believe that healthcare should not be a privilege.
Welcome, Miriam Sharifzadeh.
Thank you, Hana Hana. That was beautiful. Thank you, thank you. And thank you, B Lab, for having me here. My name's Miriam. I'm the founder of ZAS, Zen as a Service. Can we get a shout out to B Lab for having morning yoga sessions? For having delicious food to take care of you? Yes, thank you. So we've had a lot of difficult but powerful conversations all day yesterday and more today. These conversations are wonderful to have, and we even shot out into the future, 2035 for those of you who were here yesterday. We got a glimpse of what that looked like, right? We got to take naps and hibernate. It was amazing. But we can't get from here to there without taking care of ourselves, right? We can't get from here to there without strong bodies and strong minds to make sure that this work happens. So I'm going to do a little stretch break for us. This is the sequence that I'm going to riff off of. For those of you that can, please stand up. I'm going to get you to move a little bit today. We have more conversations to be had, and it's important that we stay grounded and settled into our bodies. I'm going to riff off of this. So, if you want this sequence, you could text the word yoga to 33777. We'll do this. You can have it on your phone. It's a grounding and energizing sequence. If you can't stand, you can also do this seated. So let's start by rolling the shoulders up and back. Nice. Yeah, roll the shoulders up and back. Good. And then stand with your feet about hip distance apart. Can I get my morning yogis, those that were here for the sunrise? Come on up, come into the stand in the front of the rows. We did this sequence together. Okay, let's sweep the arms up and overhead. Interlace those fingers, press the palms to face up. Nice. And then bend the elbows, find a nice cactus shape, opening up through the chest. This will help energize us. It'll help empower us. And then take the hands behind you. Interlace the fingers. Yep. Reach the knuckles down. All right. And then release. Can you forward fold wherever you are? Find some space, make it happen. Yeah. Get to know your neighbors. Oh, yeah. All right, hang here in a forward fold for just a moment. This helps stimulate the blood flow to the brain. This is the energizing, the enlivening part. Bend the knees, slowly roll it up. I hear those groans. Roll the shoulders out again. All right, so far so good. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Bend the elbows, find that cactus shape. Inhale, bring the hands behind you. And exhale, keep the hands behind you, fold forward again. Oh yeah. Release the hands towards the floor. Bend the knees, slowly roll it up. We'll keep doing this. Inhale, sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale, bend the elbows, find that cactus shape again. Inhale the hands back, open through the heart. And then exhale, fold forward. Come on down. Release the hands towards the floor. And then slowly roll it up. When we move together and we breathe together, we connect on a much deeper level, right? Bend the elbows, find that cactus shape. We use a different part of our brain to connect. Right. Clasp the hands behind you. Forward fold. Yep, you got it. Morning yogis, leading the way. Pause here for a breath. And then release the hands. Now, bend the knees, sit back and do a chair pose. Don't actually sit into your chair. It's not an option. Chair pose. Find the strength in your body, the strength in your legs. This movement, the B Corp movement, takes strength. So embody that here. Deep breath in, and then sweep the hands alongside you. Beautiful. Come all the way up to stand. Reach up. Exhale. Bend the elbows. There you go. Cactus the hands, or not cactus, interlace the hands again. And then fold forward. Come on down. Right, pause here. And then release. Once again, bend the knees, sit back, chair pose. Really embody the strength here. Sweep the hands. Nice work, bees. Good. Inhale all the way up. And exhale, cactus. Any World Cup fans out there? Yeah. Clasp the hands behind you. Yep, nice win for the U.S. Bend from the hips. Come on down. I was a little torn. They played Iran, and I am Iranian, so I was really. It was win-win either way. Go ahead and sit back. Chair pose. Right. Sweep the arms alongside you, and then all the way up to stand. But those soccer players play on the field. They practice together. They move together. They're not sitting in conference rooms talking about the plays. They're moving together. When you breathe and move together, you can get so much more done. You connect on a much deeper level. So thank you for joining me in this. You'll be ready for the next sessions to come. If you need anything, you know where to find me. Thank you.
Please welcome Hugues Sygney.
Peace and light, everyone. My name is Hugues Sygney Jr. I use he, him pronouns. I am the Senior Program Manager for Racial Equity. I have the privilege to work alongside my colleague, Marielle Martin, who the both of us are the Racial Equity team. I am truly excited today because today is a unique day for me. Today, the 1st of December, marks my 11th month with B Lab US and Canada. So, thank you. So that being said, that means our racial equity team is only 11 months old. That's powerful because there's so much we want to share with you, but before we do that, I want to share with you why we're here today. As you've been hearing throughout the conference, racial equity is at the center of everything we do. We cannot move as a collective without centering racial equity. But most importantly, we cannot move as a collective without centering the voices and the people that inform us and how we show up when it comes to racial equity. And so today, I have the privilege and honor to show an amazing video put together by Bond Studio to show exactly, to show exactly how we activate on our racial equity strategy. Our racial equity strategy comprises of 4 pillars. And I actually would like to know this question. How many of you have attended Champions Retreat in the past? Okay, so you know in the past we did not have a racial equity team. So this shows you the journey we're on, and I'm truly excited to be a part of that journey. In the racial equity strategy, it comprises of 4 pillars: learning journey, storytelling, moving beyond DEI statements, and redistributing of power to frontline communities and CBOs. Today, you will see a video that shows exactly how we activate each pillar. We have some amazing leaders already in the community, in our ecosystem, activating on each of these pillars. So the hope is, with grace and love, to truly leave this conference inspired, but understanding what is the racial equity strategy moving forward. And I hope after this video and our amazing panel discussion that will dive deeper into some of the main topics that are truly important to this movement, you'll have a good understanding and grasp of where we're headed. Thank you. Peace and light, everyone. My name is Hugues Sygney Jr., and I am the Senior Program Manager for Racial Equity at B Lab US and Canada. What led me to this impactful work was the earthquake in Haiti in 2010, when I decided to provide a platform to the Haitian people uplifting their voices. What motivates me to work in racial equity is the opportunity to bridge communities of Black, Brown, Indigenous, and people of color with C-suite executives in order to enact impactful and sustainable change.
Hi, my name is Mario Martin, and I go by Mari. I'm Racial Equity Program Manager for B Lab US and Canada. I grew up in Washington, D.C., formerly known as Chocolate City, and at the time, I was living within an environment that had systemic oppression, although I didn't understand it. What keeps me going in this work when it gets tough is thinking about the people I grew up with and how their lives may be different if they had the resources they needed. B-Lab defines racial equity as just and fair inclusion into a society in which all people, immaterial of their race or ethnicity, can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. In the US and in Canada, racial inequity is largely perpetuated by structural racism. Structural racism refers to the historical and ongoing political, cultural, social, and economic policies and practices that systematically disadvantage people of color disproportionately.
It is a joy and privilege to introduce you to B Lab's racial equity strategy, which is comprised of 4 pillars: learning journey, storytelling, moving beyond DEI statements, and redistributing power to frontline communities. I invite you to the movement. In order for our B Corps to be encouraged to care about racial equity, storytelling must be utilized to engage hearts and minds by uplifting frontline communities.
Textiles are a part of everything that we do, and they tell the story of what we care about. I am Dr. Kimberly McGlon. I'm the founder and CEO of Grant Boulevard. Grant Boulevard is a response to everything that's so tragic about fashion as it is. We are a Black-owned fashion brand based in Philadelphia, committed to creating sustainably sourced, ethically produced style. For us, we're thinking about mitigating damage and harm. We choose our fabrics based on, what's available. How do we reimagine existing garments, or how do we take dead stock and kind of use it to create some soul food? Grant Boulevard would be nothing without our design team. They do all of our pattern making, they do all of our sketching, they bring them to life. And it's because of their commitment and their dedication that everything you see here even exists. I started Grant Boulevard because of my sense of concern for women who are formerly incarcerated. 80% of them are moms. As a mom, that really resonated with me. that story of disconnection and of isolation. And when I thought about how I could show up, I thought it was style. For us, the ways in which a blank t-shirt can become a canvas is really exciting. Back in 2019, we launched a piece that says "End mass incarceration." You know, the truth is that our garments always tell the story of our values. We've shipped to 42 states in the country, so I think our presence is being felt. I think about all of the hours of living wage work we've made, you know, all of the ethical production we've been a part of and been able to champion. The thousands of hours that we've given in service to nonprofits like Books Through Bars and dollars that we've given to nonprofits like the Youth Sentencing and Reentry Project. And I think we've done a really remarkable job of getting people to think differently about what they wear and who's produced what they've worn. And when we think about creating a more equitable world, it also has to include a story of how our decisions about sustainability begin to center differently, particularly colonized people. And I think until we can get to that point of awareness, then we're falling short of precisely what we need to be tending to now, which is not just the planet, but also the well-being of people.
In order for our B Corps to be able to mobilize on racial equity, they first require in-depth education and training on various topics within the field.
White Men for Racial Justice is an organization group of white men who really share a common purpose to dismantle racism.
We want to protect the system because we know it, so I have to live with all of that hypocrisy.
Working on that through education about history and systems with a heavy informs from equity advisors that help really understand the evolution of systems that have got us to where we are today.
You probably wouldn't bring or do any harm to me here.
One of the reasons that I joined WMRJ is because it's going to take white men to help eradicate some of the social ills that they fucked up. This is not something that you can take your money and treat my community like strippers. And I like this group of white men. They got some direction. They're always in the work, man. They do not waver in trying to understand, but they also understand that they can't do it alone. Decarceration Fund is probably one of the highlights of my life because it gives returning citizens an opportunity to be great.
The Decarceration Fund, it's a seed stage fund where we invest in innovative solutions that are trying to create disruption in the criminal legal system, to reduce the likelihood that somebody gets into the system, reduce suffering to individuals or their families while they're in the system, or improve the likelihood of a successful transition out of the system. The learning journey of understanding a lot of history in the United States has really helped inform the way we've made decisions about the design of the fund.
One thing I love by being on this as an advisor is I can make a suggestion, like it was one particular company, you gotta go there. And next thing I know, I get a call from Chris, and he was like, we seen it, and you were right. Chris Bentley, he really understands the disadvantages of people like myself have coming home from prison. Here's a firm that actually puts their money where their mouth is. And I love Decarceration Fund, it's dope.
Being a part of both has been very interesting because the evolution of one has informed my actions in another. History shouldn't be like an emotional thing, it should be an informative thing. The more that you can understand about the state of our country today, the more that you can try to do things to change it.
In order for a B Corps to move beyond talking about racial equity and moving into action, they require guidance on internal business practices.
So Greyston Bakery, we are a for-profit benefit corporation, but most people know us by our brownie inclusions. You may not know that it's us, but anytime that you've had a Ben & Jerry's pint of chocolate fudge brownie, you've had one of our products. We also provide the packaged brownies that you might see in Whole Foods. We are the company that makes those brownies, and they're made by our open hires every day. At the very basic level, open hiring means you hire the next person through the door. The way we do it at Greyston Bakery is you simply have to add your name to our jobs list. And when we do our calls to bring people in for orientation, you got the job, no questions asked. And it's a model that we've been using now for 40 years. Bernie Glassman is our founder. Bernie had this vision in 1982 that it was an injustice when you had people that wanted to work, but they might have had one or two barriers to employment. He saw these folks on the streets. And he would literally pull them off the street and say, hey, do you want to work? I would say it's evolved since 1982, because we saw as we were bringing folks in, you realize that they need additional support. So how can we keep our folks here and make sure that they're thriving? So we actually added what we now call a resource and support specialist. So if I need housing, if I'm having transportation challenges, this person connects you to the organizations that can provide those resources. When you think about the salaries that have been generated, when you think about the people that have been diverted from the criminal justice system, $14 million of economic impact has been returned to this community because they got a job, either through Greyston Bakery or through Greyston Foundation, where we train folks and place them into jobs as well. That's a huge benefit to the community.
Redistributing power is one of the most powerful pillars of our strategy, encouraging our B Corps to give service, resources, and advocacy towards pressing racial equity efforts.
My name is Terrell Hegler, and your fave trash man is a really chill guy who just loves his community and really wants to push Philadelphia forward in the most positive way.
Welcome to Wednesday, guys.
The waste management challenges here in Philadelphia are multi-layered. We have sanitation workers who are getting sick and hurt. We have neighborhoods who don't get their trash picked up until about 2 days later. We have an enormous amount of illegal dumping. And I think the biggest thing that we have is we have a system that isn't working for everybody. During the pandemic, trash here was so bad. We're quarantining. We had angry residents. I got a gun pulled out on me. So I really started Your Fave Trash Man Instagram just to give a light to people on what sanitation workers go through on a daily basis to help them realize that we're human beings too. The positive outcomes that came, for one, the respect that sanitation workers have. Like, there's a support sanitation hashtag that has its own page because so many people were using it. My nonprofit, Trash to Treasure. My first cleanup, I only had 40 people. By my fifth cleanup, I had 200 people in North Philadelphia picking up 6 tons of trash on Martin Luther King Day. I think I'm most proud of is that little groups began to create their own little Your Fave Trash Man. So each neighborhood would go and clean trash every Saturday. People felt empowered to take their neighborhoods back and make an impact for themselves versus waiting on somebody else to do it. It was a whole movement that began from picking up trash off the street. I'm running for city council at large here in Philadelphia because I don't feel that there's an everyday Philadelphian that's gone through what I've gone through that is going to advocate for me. I want to represent those Philadelphians that feel like Philadelphia has given up on them. My mother is my greatest inspiration. As a child, I grew up seeing my mom be a servant, always helping others. And literally her last words to me before she passed away was, use your fave trash man to change the world.
Hey, if I do it, then I'm doing it to death. Oh, yeah. I'm influencing the ones that do it best. Oh, yeah. Started moving with the crew. You got a few, we got a slew. We trying to do what they said that we couldn't do. Oh, yeah. I ain't living with regrets. Ain't no limits, ain't no rest. They want money, power, respect. I want more, I want to be blessed. We want the legacy. We got the hope and we bring in the remedy. Working it steadily. We want the glory. We want the blessing.
Please welcome to the stage Joseph Kinner, Margo Walsh, and Olayinka Credle.
Round of applause for this amazing panel. I wanted to take some time to acknowledge some of these amazing leaders, not only in the video, but that are currently doing the work on the ground right now. And so I have the privilege and honor to share this stage with Joseph Kinner, CEO and president of Greyston Bakery, Margo Walsh, founder of MaineWorks, and Olayinka Credle, who is DEIB Wealth Equity Strategist. Joseph, if you can share with the audience a bit more about your background. Tell us a little bit more about how you got into this journey.
Yeah, well, I was on my own learning journey, if you will. And just to be transparent, if you look at my LinkedIn or my resume, you'll be like, how did this guy become president and CEO of Greyston? Because it was a circuitous route that I took to get to where I am. I mean, I was in financial services, I was in government, and stumbled upon Greyston. I started out as a financial institutions underwriter, insurance analyst at Lehman Brothers, 10 years at Pepsi in sales strategy, capital markets, and risk management, and then in government for 10 years as a senior advisor to our county executive, and then deputy commissioner of social services. So I was on a journey just trying to figure out what did I want to do, what did I want to become, what was my purpose, and I realized that I wanted to go above and beyond just providing a product or a service. I really wanted to do something that had a societal impact. And being at Greyston really blends everything that I've done. So the business piece that I love, but also just having a product not just be a brownie, but actually be people whose lives are transformed. And we do it every day at Greyston, which is amazing.
Powerful, powerful. Can you share a bit more about the success of the Body Shop and the recent partnership with IKEA?
Yeah, so we did this whole futuristic thing yesterday where we talked about what we wanted the world to be in 2035. Well, we have a 2030 vision that we want 40,000 jobs to be offered through open inclusive hiring, really bringing the folks off the sidelines, so people with barriers to employment, those who actually want to work, but because they're formerly incarcerated, because they're a single mom, because they have some barrier to employment that, through our own biases, we exclude them. But what we don't realize is they're good people, and they're loyal people, and they will do a great job for your company. So we've been partnering with the Body Shop for the last 3 years. They've gone from 300 opportunities being offered through open hiring in the US to now 3,000 being offered USA, Canada, Australia. And that took time, over 3 years, again, a journey. And now we just signed on IKEA, which has 200,000 employees across this world. We're going to be starting in North America, but if it's anything like the Body Shop, can you imagine if we have an IKEA and then an Amazon, maybe a Walmart, we'll get to those 40,000 jobs by 2030. So that's the world we want to see. We don't want people to be on the sidelines that want to work. There should be an opportunity provided to them. Let's get rid of the barriers to entry, and let's get people into jobs, because that's how we create wealth.
Powerful. My dear Margo, can you share a bit more about your background and the reason for diversity of thought?
Thank you so much. And to B Lab for this incredible event and to bring all of this together, because I think we are truly, in our own way, an incubator of innovation wherever we're working, and it's hard to see what else is happening out there. So this has been phenomenal, so thank you. But I took a traditional role. I graduated from college and I went straight to New York, and I thought, I could do recruiting. So I worked in a bank, and then after that, I worked at Goldman Sachs for several years doing investment banking recruiting, where we started a diversity roundtable to go and attract students of different backgrounds, and that was, remind you, in 1989. And so a long time ago. So I've been part of that at the other end of the spectrum, which was there's something that needs to happen here. We don't know what to do. And it was a really difficult discussion at the time. And what happened was out of my own recovery, I moved to Maine, and I started volunteering out of my own recovery at the wet shelter and at the jail, which is, in many cases, in a socioeconomic difficulty. Jails and prisons and wet shelters are places of scarcity. And I don't know if anybody here knows anybody who suffers from substance use disorder, right? It's always part of that never having enough, and that place of scarcity and that place of disassociation from humanity, and substance use is a symptom of feeling different and apart. So anyway, I started noticing I was in a pre-release employment setting at our local jail, and the best the corrections officer could do was send these eager young people across the street to make coffee. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. So I took my recruiting background and I thought, I'm going to start a staffing company, and instead of continuing to listen to this idea that no one wants to hire these guys because they're all in jail and they're all felons, I said, I will. And so I started a company that you had to be a felon to work at my company.
Which is a great segue into my second question, which is, again, MaineWorks only hires felons, which is a very disruptive model in terms of the
so
traditional.
it's been a hot mess. But everybody's coming from scarcity. Everybody's coming from a crisis. And by the way, I was a single mom, head of household, on food stamps. Unlikely to end up there, but I did. How many people end up there accidentally? I didn't know it was going to end like this. I didn't know I wouldn't have enough money to pay for my benefits that I need my kid because he has a disability. I didn't know how to pay for anything. And so I can feel the strain of what people live with, which are basically scarcity, constant crisis. Anybody who started their own business or knows about that, and then debt. And so there's these social indicators too of, how can we find a better way forward that would understand those foundational issues for people who have been struggling and have been struggling. By the way, jail and prison, as you guys know, is a socioeconomic problem. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're coming from the boardroom where I was at Goldman with Monets on the wall to the jail. Accessing money, if you're from that world, is very different than accessing money from a place of scarcity, and we've got to get real about that.
Thank you. Thank you. My dear friend Olayinka, can you share a bit more with the audience your background and how you've been on this journey?
Yes, so I like to start my background in high school, and the reason why I do that is because anyone who knows me from high school, I was doing NAACP work, I was doing campaigns for presidents and local government. I've always been very involved in government, and so when I graduated college, I got my first job in the United States Congress. I was a congressional staffer, and it was basically like my dream job. But once I started working there, it was fast-paced, it was a lot of hustle, and I was the only black person in my office. And the work was great, but right away I realized everything that I learned, my background is in sociology and public policy. And so everything that I learned about equity and inequities, it was nothing like actually experiencing it on a daily basis. And I didn't last more than a year there. And the reason why is because I decided I wanted to solve a problem. And some of you may know my first B Corp, Melanin Essentials, the beauty brand. Yes. And so that's really how I got to start in, again, knowing and experiencing what equity and inequities were. Interestingly enough, we had a great start. And then my background was in program development as well. And so I've always had a full-time job while I was running my business. And we got to the point where we could go full-time, and we started to get some headway, and things were great for a while. And then we started to realize we were getting to a bootstrapping, stuck phase. And I said, we need to raise capital. And we just kept telling people we need to raise capital. And it got really frustrating because we would tell people about our vision for our brand, and we kept hitting walls. Yes. And it came right back to that, there's so many systemic oppression facing me. And so it's nothing like learning and educating yourself, but then when you experience it head on, that's when it got real for me. And so I used my background in public policy and just working with business owners to now do wealth equity work. And so I realized that my experiences, I also was a single mom, and I was on food stamps as well. Yeah. And so I just had that experience of continuing to see everything that I studied, everything that I was prepared to do, nothing could prepare me for actually experiencing it in real life. And so that's the passion behind what I do now, is really just working with people who want to invest in black-owned businesses and want to close the racial wealth gap, and that's really where my focus is now.
So you are currently working on something phenomenal. Can you share a bit more about the research and pending technology that is being produced to reveal the wider impact of the racial wealth gap?
Yes, and I'm trying to stick to my notes because I know we only have 2 minutes per question. And so, my background, I thought actually I work with investors now, and so I do directing for investment funds for business owners, as well as work with other corporations to close the racial wealth gap. And so one thing that I realized was a lot of people would ask me over and over, like, well, how do I know the impact that I'm having on the racial wealth gap? Like, what does that look like to actually influence it? Like, you know, a lot of corporations, especially like put in the black square on their Instagrams and just all of that stuff that happened in 2020. And it was like, how can we actually hold these businesses and corporations and investors accountable? The racial wealth gap is continuing to grow. Black wealth is projected to be at $0 by 2053. Like, come on.
No.
Right? And so it's just all these things. And I moved to Atlanta 3 years ago. And right when I moved there, Atlanta was ranked the #1 place for economic inequities. And so I was like, okay, I know why I'm here. And then they were just ranked the #1 best place to live by money.com. So I was like, well, who's experiencing that #1 best place to live? So here again, we're faced with the same problem. And so I decided to gather all of the people that I knew. I'm working with a few institutes, so Harvard Finance Sustainability School, as well as Georgia State's Finance School as well. And so I'm working with a lot of different institutions who are focusing on how can we research the different impact tools that we've already been doing. I do manually as a wealth equity strategist. So how can I take that process as I'm consulting with different organizations to say, okay, what data can we use to say, okay, if we make these changes, and if we focus on how we engage the economic activity and regionally in our local economies, maybe, then just maybe we can see some change in the racial wealth gap. And so that's what I'm working on now.
Powerful.
Yeah, and I'll be sharing more about it in my breakout session. Yeah.
Did you want to say that last plug again?
Yes. Yeah, so I'll be sharing more about it. I'm having a breakout session specifically about how businesses can address the racial wealth gap, and so I'll be sharing more about how to get into that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Joseph, back to you. All right. What policies and procedures were identified that increased inequities internally, and how did it change the culture?
Yeah, so I could use many examples, even at Greyston, but when you look at the Body Shop, for instance, and we have about 30 partners that work with us on open and inclusive hiring, but the one thing is actually us. It's the hiring managers, it's the CEOs, it's our own biases that actually prevent these folks from entering our organizations at entry-level jobs that don't really require much other than the ability to show up, do a good job, and take instruction. So it's actually our own biases that were identified that prevented good people from entering our organizations. But what you find, and the solution is what open hiring is to all of this, and I think it's the perfect DEI strategy because it's actually real. It's not just a black square on social media. It's not just a statement that a CEO issues. But when you look at our partners, you see 60% of the folks are people of color. 60% are female. At Greyston, 98% of our bakers are people of color. 30% of that are actually Latino Spanish speaking. 30% are actually women. So, but this is also a pipeline. If you think about it, these bakers, these folks that start in the retail operations at the Body Shop, these are the future managers, the future leads, the supervisors. Again, people building their path, their career, and their wealth. This is what the solution is. When we tear down those barriers and we bring folks into our organizations and we give them the tools to succeed, when we start revamping our learning and development strategies in our organizations, what do our managers need for them to be successful as managers so that the people that report to them can be successful as employees, it changes the whole dynamic of the organization.
I hear you. What qualitative data are you collecting to measure your impact internally and externally?
Yeah, so again, when you have awesome people that have been told no so many times and you hire them, I mean, Body Shop, for instance, their retention rate, their turnover rate went down, like, they cut it by 2/3. 2/3, like, it's unbelievable to see that kind of a reduction in turnover. And people were amazed by that, except us, because we said, no, it's, you have people that, you've just given them a lifeline. Shauna, one of our bakers, who's now a supervisor, she's been with us for 3 or 4 years now. She was a single mom, 5 kids, one with special needs, told time and time again that, she's not male enough. She didn't have the right experience. She didn't have the right education. She's now a supervisor here. She was about to give up her kids at one point and give them over to somebody. She has all of her kids with her. She has her own place now. She's a supervisor. And that's what it's all about. Just under half of our non-union management folks at Greyston were former bakers. So it's those types of things that we look at, promotional opportunity, cutting that turnover rate, looking at the time to hire. I mean, folks, we know this as business folks, you know, the number one cost driver in our organization is labor. When you can cut your turnover rate by that amount, that's serious. When you can cut the time to hire from 30 days on average to 5 to 7, that's serious. When your productivity can go up 13%, which was the case with the Body Shop, that's all bottom line benefit. This is just a better way to do business, a smart way to do business.
Margo, is there a way to close the gap between living wage and moderate pay rate?
That's such an important question, and I'm so happy to hear that minimum wage is not even on the table. Minimum wage is subhuman.
Yep.
And yet, the burden to a small company to pay a moderate wage is a stretch, and so to get to a living wage is a further stretch. So what we tried to do in 2017, I co-founded Maine Recovery Fund, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that expects that everybody who's new to the workforce, formerly incarcerated, coming out of substance use, all of those crisis moments, need more than just the job. If they just needed the job, they wouldn't have come through MaineWorks. They would have gone to, you know, someplace that might pay them more. And so the 501c3 nonprofit asks the question, and what do you need? And what do you need? Okay, you don't have a ride to work, obviously. Transportation is the #1 barrier. We pay for ride to work and back to dignify that experience. We ask the question from head to toe, do you have anything that hurts or bothers you? My teeth hurt, I haven't had a dentist appointment. My glasses, it's an old prescription. So we try to eliminate a lot of those very real, and I think any company could do that, frankly, is start to fund your people who are starting from the bottom, fund their way forward. Give them a huge amount of money right up front. Let them prosper. And I think that as a nonprofit, we're trying to raise money to do that, and I end up with most of money coming from friends and families because of reporting requirements, and you have to have a history and all these things, which I think is a barrier. But I think that there is an opportunity to quite literally fund the delta between moderate pay rates and a modest living wage through financial institution philanthropy, period.
Period.
Yeah. I don't know what as an idea.
Yeah, and when we think of corporate philanthropy, how do we find a system to infuse grant and ways to address the gaps?
So I would go back to the same and allow time for other people, but I really do think that any company, so I love that B Corp offers mission margin, and if we are in a benefit corp paradigm, we should be considering the best interest of all of your workforce. And the least of your workforce, paradoxically, will become the future of your workforce, the workforce. And so they're the ones who need TLC. It is a crisis moment. And tomorrow morning, we have a fire circle at MaineWorks every single Friday morning. It used to be every day, but now, to bring everybody together in one place to evaluate, how you doing? What do you need? How's it going? So it's that engagement from the top to the bottom, because the answer is, the top doesn't need the answers. The bottom needs the answers. They need the urgency. There's a lot to be learned from what's happening. So I would value your people who are new to your organization and pay them as much as you possibly can.
Thank you. Olayinka, how does this tool that you're working on right now, how does it address the structural challenges based on the qualitative and quantitative data? How is what you're developing preventing future people from experiencing these same situations?
Yeah, so as a sociologist, I respect statistics. I respect research. It's one of my favorite things to do. And when you talk about the facts, the U.S. economy has already lost $22.9 trillion in just the last 30 years due to the racial wealth gap and not having an equitable economy. And so we already know there's economic gain to be put back into the economy by closing the racial wealth gap. But I like to say and challenge folks to think about qualitative versus quantitative data. Qualitative data is going to tell you the story. They're going to tell you the quantitative data, but in context. And as I said about Black wealth, that's one thing when you think about it. But like I said, living it out, the way that we really look at the qualitative data in our research is accountability. But then also when you think about how someone experiences their economy, when I'm working with our investors and they're trying to do community wealth building and development in the community, I always ask them, the 3 things I ask is, do they have autonomy in the community? Do they have belonging? And do they have psychological safety? If they don't experience those things when they're interacting with you, then your program is not working. And so that's probably most important, because you can talk about data, you can talk about numbers all day, every day, but if you don't talk about it in a way that the community members who are most impacted by the racial wealth gap, if they're not experiencing that elevation as a person, as in belonging, then that's how we prioritize our research.
Powerful. Another question I have for you is what you are doing, putting the onus on individuals or the institution in addressing the systemic issues?
That's actually what we're working on right now. We're kind of in that sort of phase of researching and trying to figure out how do we want to take this beta test, because there's a lot of folks who want individual connection to this sort of problem. They want to figure out how to engage, but it's a systems issue, and I'm a systems worker, and I do wealth equity on a macro structure. And so actually this is going to be a slight plug, but if you do know someone, or if anyone in the audience knows someone who does beta tools and AI tools that can really focus on this sort of topic, I would love to kind of connect with them and see, like, what do you think the best path is forward? I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of research. I'm kind of overwhelmed because it's a lot, but I want to figure out what's the best path forward to balance individual accountability as well as corporations and investors.
I have some people I want to introduce you to.
Okay, great. Come to my session.
Thank you for that. Joseph, what costs were decreased within the organization after the structural changes were made, or what are the anticipated decreases?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I like to look at it as really a reallocation of resources. So we stop kind of making investments in keeping people out of our organizations and start thinking about how do we make the investments in keeping people within an organization? How do we need to change training and learning and development? How do we need to provide the supports that folks need? Like I said in the video, we have a resource and support specialist that works with our folks to figure out the transportation issues, the child care issues, the child support issues, all of those things that our employees need. I think that's one of the biggest lessons anybody has learned from COVID is just like, are my employees even safe? Yep. Like, what are the resources I need to provide just to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they feel valued? So it's really a reallocation of the cost. So instead of keeping people out, I'm going to keep you in, and here's how we're going to do it. But what does get decreased, as I said before, it's the turnover rate, because people feel valued. They feel like you've given them a lifeline. As one of our employees says, you've changed my life. You've changed my entire trajectory by just giving me a job. So think about that from a turnover perspective, but then it's the time to hire gets reduced. Your productivity goes up, and you actually create a better organization just culturally, because everybody else within the organization feels good to be working for you, because look at what they're doing to change this community. Look at what they're doing to add value as opposed to extracting it from the community.
So as a plug and a call to action, how do folks get started?
The one lever that we all have as employers is we have the ability to hire. We don't have to ask Congress or anybody for that approval. Just do it. And that's what I would say. I mean, anybody can have an open hiring job or an inclusive hiring job. It could be your front desk person. You could do it the way we do it and have your whole manufacturing facility be open hiring, but you have it within your power as a leader to do that. So just get started. Whether it's one job, 10 or 1,000, get started. Because the one thing that we know we're not doing right is hiring, because we have 11 million unfilled jobs right now. We have people leaving at a record rate every month. So something is wrong with the system, and the system needs to change, and open and inclusive hiring is the way to do that. So I would challenge everybody in this room, what's that one job that you can make that could be your open hiring job? What's the one department that could be an open hiring department? And together, that's an economic impact that we're missing out on. It's the wealth gap that's causing a decrease in our economic ability, but there's also a productivity gap because we have all these unfilled jobs. So that means work's not getting done, services aren't being provided, products aren't getting produced because we don't have enough people. We need to change the playbook because what we're doing now is not working.
Facts. Margo, where do you see opportunities to do more systematically for marginalized people and communities, and what institutional resources are needed to support them?
So this wasn't my answer until I just had this feeling that I needed to answer this question, because if I hear about one more prison system that talks about resume building, I want to pull every single hair out of my head. There's no reason to develop a resume at that level, there's a need for community and engagement and learning, like to create a conduit that says, as you're getting ready to be released from jail or prison, there has to be a synergist organization on the receiving end that dignifies that moment, because that is the hot mess moment. There's no way to do anything productive if you don't know where you're sleeping and you've lost every family relationship you ever had. So I think that starting high up the river within the criminal justice system to understand how disruptive it is being incarcerated, and then creating that kind of place to slide into a supportive environment. And I look at Homeboy Industries as one of the highest, like my most esteemed models, because that creates, you're accepted, come on in, is what he says. And you know what, Father Boyle said, everyone wearing tattoos, they don't want their tattoos anymore. Let's get something in place today where we can get tattoos removed if people want to disassociate from whatever that tattoo represents. That's impactful change. So I think a center that allows everybody, and I love your model, I love Greyston Bakery, and then it says, and how can we help you? Here's a job, and how can we help you? It's pretty basic.
Yep. And so what would be your call to action?
Fund the here's the job, and here's the help. I really think, because the job is the catalyst to economic viability, and people are absolutely dead in the water without economic viability, and that's why I'm hoping that we can find well-intended philanthropy that says, we understand the wealth gap, let's address the wealth gap. Figure it out, let's just do that. And there's so much money out there, there's more philanthropy money out there, philanthropy money in the world right now than ever in history. Where is all that money? Let's get that money to the trenches, because the people at the Goldman Sachs that I worked at, they don't need the funding sources as much as the people who are building things from the bottom up. Yeah. And let's get busy closing the gap.
Period.
Olayinka, same question. Where do you see opportunities to do more systematically for marginalized people and communities, and what institutional resources are needed to support them?
This is a loaded question, and we had them for like a week. And
you can change it.
I know, and I struggle with this so much because I think I'm going to keep my answer simple. I'm going to address two different people, those who have wealth and power and access. And it can be different in varying levels of that. But if you have the autonomy to make decisions, if you're a CEO, if you're an executive, you're a director, if you're in charge of a fund, I would say take the time to step back and realize that this stuff is really not that hard. Like, this shit is so, are we allowed to say that?
Yes. Express yourself.
It's so simple. Why are we making it so difficult?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's really not. And so I think, like, I talk to a lot of CEOs, and I'll hear different things, and you kind of sift through all the noise, and it's just like, it's like beating a dead horse. We already know that there's economic opportunity here. We already know the wealth gap is growing, exacerbated since COVID in the last 3-4 years. And so I would say if you have power, I have power and privilege, right? I have wealth and power in some ways. And so I use that privilege, and even on my website, I have a link to like all the ways you can hire Black speakers, hire Black leaders, hire Black executives. And so I use my platform and I share it. And I still have a long way to go. I still have needs. I'm still raising capital for my own organization. But I think the biggest thing is if you have power, if you have access, if you have opportunity, know that we need community wealth, because the racial wealth gap affects everybody. It doesn't just affect those who are systemically oppressed. And so I would say that for those who have power, and I think those who are kind of climbing up on that rut, that food stamps thing, I was on food stamps for 4.5 years. It was hard. And I would say just hold on and stay educated and take your time, but also know you have a responsibility to dismantle the system as well that is also within you that you're feeling impressed from. And so I started doing my work way before I was on these stages. I started making sure I did the work that I needed to do so that way I could be able to be of value to my community and be an asset to those who are around me. And so that will be my message. This shit is real simple.
I would say, what's your call to action? But it sounds like
that's my call to action.
That's your call to action.
And now you're going to hear the complex stuff in my session, but I'll say that it's very simple. Let's keep this simple.
I want to thank the three of you again for the amazing work that you do.
Thank you.
And I continue to support everything that you do.
Thank you.
Please welcome Erica Williams.
Good morning, everyone. I got 5 minutes, y'all, so I'm gonna get right to it. Take your time. That's not what they said. So first, I'd like to thank Raymond Barnes and Shannon Franklin of Consciously for inviting me to be a part of this community and talk to you all today. This truly is rare air, surrounded by individuals whose objective is to marry their bottom line with making the world a better place. A little bit about myself. I work for a global foundation on a portfolio created to accelerate the pace of wealth accumulation for Black families, while at the same time addressing systemic disinvestment in Black communities. From our perspective, you cannot work on wealth building without working on wealth extraction. So like many of you, I have the opportunity to work a 9 to 5 on things that I care deeply about. I care about Black people. My life's work has been about the betterment of Black children, families, and communities everywhere. In my current role, I find myself in spaces with very, very, very rich people. And in these spaces, I make it a point to say that I love Black people. My calling out my love for Black people isn't to imply that I hate other races. If I truly love myself, in fact, I can't not love you. I was dancing with all of y'all last night. I say I love Black people to signal to others in the room how I am and will consistently orient myself to my work. I say it to do my small part to create balance in a country where, as a Black woman, I have to hold historical trauma, enslavement, murderous massacres, disinvestment, extraction, exclusion, all of which is the antithesis of love. I say it to add love in spaces where love is needed. It occurred to me that environmentalists and those who are on the front lines in the fight against climate change fight fiercely to ensure that we are advancing sustainability, because we know that the well-being of our planet is inextricably linked to our own existence. We love our planet Earth and take great care to not cause any more harm, not do any more damage. In everything we do, we are intentional and deliberate about making good choices that will be friendly to our planet, from the cars we drive to our plant-based lunches and dinners, which has been delicious, by the way, and the toilet tissue we use. Perhaps contrary to our love for the planet, we don't think about our connection to each other as critical to our survival. In other words, whether we have equity in our world or not doesn't necessarily take any skin off my back, one might say, except that it does, and it has. It literally has taken skin off of Black people and others that have been persecuted. When one group doesn't acknowledge that we are all members of the human race, when we don't feel our connection, these are the things that happen. We have inequities. We are all connected. So, in my work to center equity, I make the conscious choice to center my love for Black people. Disclaimer, this is my work. Your work might be different. For you, it may be the centering of women or LGBTQ. Again, one loves for their community, and the well-being of that community does not and should not come at the expense for your love of others or for the love of yourself. What I was asked to do is to speak how I center racial equity in my role. So I'm going to share a few things. I say the word Black people. I say the words Black people often. You'd be surprised how revolutionary saying that is. I create opportunities for Black vendors. I ask questions like, where are all the Black people if I am in spaces where we seemingly are underrepresented? I bring historical context to conversations that I believe can benefit from historical context. I champion Black-led institutions and advocate that our investment in these institutions not just be project-based, but it should also include general operating support for the fiscal and organizational health of those organizations. When I think of B Corp's theory of change, imagine a world where all stakeholders, not just shareholders, are valued and prioritized. I ask myself, and who are the stakeholders? When you think of them, can you see Black, Indigenous, and people of culture? Do you see the men and women who are persecuted because of their race, religion, and sexual orientation or political views? Are these among the stakeholders that you are valuing and prioritizing? To center equity, racial, gender, or economic or otherwise is to open and center our hearts. The antidote to injustice is to love. Love is a threat to systems and institutions that rely on disconnection. We must call out or call in, as you would say, anything that seeks to perpetuate disconnection. Thank you, guys.
I'm going to ask you to do something with me. I want you all to close your eyes. You virtually as well. And I'm going to ask you just a simple question. If you feel triggered in any way from anything that's been said, exchanged, discussed over the last few days, just raise your hand. You can put your hands down. You can open your eyes. I asked you to do that because we opened our whole session talking about having healing spaces. And I want to remind you that there's a place on the 4th floor for you to go to if you need to chill or if you need to talk. And I'm also going to plug the White Men for Racial Justice breakout session later on today, particularly if you need a space where you can be brave and honest about what's triggering you. And I think it really boils down to the difference between what it means to be valuable and valued. You see, our country was founded on the land and bodies of people being valuable, which is about what our bodies and our assets can give to someone else. And it was built in the fabric of our economic system. And what it looks like when someone is valuable, it means they are expendable if they're no longer doing or giving something to you. Versus if you are valued, you are loved for how you wake up in the morning, for how you look when your hair's not straight, for whether you can stand or walk, for whether you love someone that looks like you or not. You are valued because you are. Yes. Because you are. And if you feel an outpouring, if you feel the emotions charging in the room, it's because so many of us, have been expended when we were told we were no longer valuable. And the difference is that we now know and we value ourselves. So these pillars of B-Lab, the stakeholder economy, racial equity, climate justice, they're not words. They are the embodiment of what it looks like to build a world where every single one of us, no matter where you come from, are valued. Please bring that with the rest of your day and enjoy your sessions.